top resistors to the Iranian regime condemned Joe Biden and the Glasgow Climate Summit for legitimizing Iran's President Ebrahim Ra'isi. One America's chief White House correspondent, Chanel Rion, has more.
As President Biden and world leaders descend on Glasgow to politicize weather under the guise of climate talks, one of the invited guests is raising outrage. New Iranian President Ebrahim Ra'isi has been accused of killing 30,000 protesters in 1988. This is just one of dozens of human rights violations Ra'isi is associated with, according to Iranian resistance. Ra'isi will be participating in the climate talks alongside world leaders amidst calls to prosecute and imprison him. Back in Washington, the National Council of Resistance for Iran hosted its annual Free Iran Summit, highlighting bipartisan calls to arrest and prosecute President Ra'isi. NCRI's علیرضا Ja'frzadeh tells OAN the Biden administration's tolerance for Ra'isi at Glasgow climate talks and Biden's hopes to reawaken nuclear talks are naive and deadly.
The only language Tehran understands is a language of firmness and decisiveness, and that's why I think these continuous offers to the Tehran regime to get back to the negotiating table, ignoring the actions of the Iranian regime, is only damaging.
Alongside former Vice President Mike Pence, former Democrat Senator Joseph Lieberman spoke at the Free Iran Summit. Lieberman tells OAN reviving Iran's nuclear deal was a mistake only worsened by Biden.
I was really upset when President Biden said that he wanted to try to go back into the Iran nuclear agreement. But everything Iran has done, this regime in Iran, including the election of a butcher, a brutal murderer as the president now, Ra'isi, should say to us that we can't trust them. How can you have negotiations? So I hope that the United States does not follow some of our good friends in Europe who seem about to go back to the negotiating table. I think the regime in Iran, which is our enemy in so many ways, is at its weakest point since the revolution of 1979. This is not a time to rescue it, to revive it. It's a time to squeeze it and get it out of office.
Lieberman adds bipartisan calls to prosecute Ra'isi is more than justified.
Ra'isi should not be in the president's office in Iran. He should be arrested and taken to the criminal court in The Hague and tried for what I believe he committed, crimes against humanity and the crime of genocide.
Under Trump, the Iran deal was cut in favor of a maximum pressure strategy, one that strangled the Iranian regime using harsh sanctions.
The maximum pressure of the Trump administration, which really extended a bipartisan policy in Congress for the 24 years I was there, is the right track. And it's not time to loosen up on it, to give less pressure to try to entice the Iranian regime into negotiations, which will go nowhere. Nowhere good for us, anyway. So I think keep the pressure on, build on it.
But Biden wants to undo all of this by instead legitimizing Ra'isi.
The Biden administration has said that they will judge Ra'isi by its actions. And, well, if that's the case, first you have to look at the track record.
A track record including the death and imprisonment of tens of thousands of protesters against the Iranian regime. Ja'frzadeh says the Biden team seems to be ignoring other actions, including who Ra'isi has chosen as his closest advisors.
His cabinet, mostly they're terrorists, violators of human rights, the IRGC commanders. Many of them are wanted by the Interpol for terrorism and are already on the sanctions list of the United States. So I think at the end of the day, this administration will come to grips with the reality on the ground.
When asked of Biden's insistence on legitimizing Ra'isi during these climate talks, former Attorney General under W. Bush, Michael Mookasey, tells OAN this is driven by childish motivations.
I think it's part naivete. I think it's part Trump pulled out, so we dive back in. I mean, it's we are the non-Trump. in any event, I believe that they are slowly realizing that they're being played with.
Moukheisi says legitimizing Ra'isi is legitimizing a deadly status quo.
It's a strategy with a dead end because Iran will never forego nuclear weapons. It will use the JCPOA, as it has in the past, to run the clock while it continues to enrich and weaponize uranium.
Chanel Rian, One America News, the White House.
Want to see more videos like this? Visit OANN.com for immediate access to all the clips you've been waiting to see.